Hello Year 10 and welcome to this video which will help you to do your homework. We're working at the moment on how did Hitler consolidate his power between 1933 and 1934. This video will help you look at removing external opposition and we'll do task 1.1. We're going to start by doing a do now, just as we normally do in class. So I'd like you to do these 5 questions, please, at the back of your workbooks without using your notes, even if that means you have to take a clever guess. You'll need to pause the video and spend about 3 or 4 minutes on this, and then when you're done, hit play. Now it's time to check our answers. So these are the answers that I came up with. You need to pause the video now, check your own, and if there's any that you got wrong or anything that you missed, remember to write it in a different colour pen. Pause now and do that, and then when you're ready, hit play again. Okay, so the next step of our inquiry on how did Hitler consolidate his power is to look at how the Nazis removed external opposition. So very quickly, we're going to start by identifying the key knowledge on our knowledge organisers for today's lesson. Again, you'll need to pause the video and tick or highlight these items on your knowledge organiser. And when you're done, hit play and we'll continue. Now, let's recap the story so far. We should know by now that after Hitler became dictator, the Nazis transformed Germany into a one-party state, and we call this the Nazi Revolution. Here's how it happened. First of all, the Nazis used the Reichstag fire. They blamed the fire on the communists, and they used it to increase their share of seats in the Reichstag. They almost got a majority, but not quite. So, the next step was that the Nazis passed the Enabling Act. They pressured the Reichstag to change the constitution, and this new enabling law gave Hitler the powers of a dictator. He no longer had to have the consent of the Reichstag to make laws. Instead, he could make laws on his own. Hitler then used these powers to make sure that all non-Nazi organisations were either taken under Nazi control or shut down. And we call this Gleichschaltung. That's a German word. It literally means coordination. Gleichschaltung. And that's the bit that we're going to look at today. So let's zoom in on Gleichschaltung for a moment. After Hitler made himself dictator, the Nazis carried out a process called Gleichschaltung. That meant bringing all aspects of state and society under Nazi control. The Nazis targeted all non-Nazi organisations, and they either took control of them or they shut them down completely. Now this included the civil service and the courts, the Länder parliaments, the old regional parliaments, other political parties, trade unions, and it also included social clubs and sports clubs across Germany. So it's time now for a task. You're going to do part 1 of task 1.11. I want you to pick 3 of these 5 organisations, and I want you to suggest why was it important for Hitler to control them. You should pause the video now and spend 4 or 5 minutes on that before you hit play again. Let's share some ideas here. First of all, the civil service and courts. The Nazis needed loyal civil servants to carry out their policies, and they also saw that they could use the courts to imprison their opponents. Hitler wanted to take the Länder parliaments under control because they had important powers. They controlled local police and services. Hitler also needed to make sure that they were loyal to his government. After all, in the past, the Länder parliaments had sometimes defied the central government. Hitler wanted to wipe out other political parties. After all, they had a lot of support across German society. Many Germans had voted for other parties in the 1930s elections, and these other parties opposed Nazi ideas and policies. Hitler wanted to control trade unions. They had important powers. For example, they had the power to disrupt the economy by going on strike. Trade unions also contained a lot of the Nazis' political opponents, including many communists, and Hitler wanted to make sure that they were kept under control. And lastly, the Nazis wanted to make sure that social clubs were under Nazi control. After all, these were places where ordinary people could come together and discuss non-Nazi ideas, and the Nazis really did want to control that. So how did the Nazis carry this Gleichschaltung out? Well, they used both law and violence to do it. Many conservatives in German society, and I'm talking there about landowners, industrialists, army generals and politicians, many of these conservatives were deeply unhappy about the violence used by the Nazis. You need to do some reading here. I want you to read this information in box 1.10. It tells you how the Nazis dealt with those different organisations. You need to find and highlight any laws which the Nazis passed in order to bring them under control. You need to pause the video while you do this, and when you're done, hit play. Okay, and now the final part of your task. Before you do this, make sure that you have read carefully what the different laws were which the Nazis passed. Now you need to rotate your workbook and you need to fill in what each law meant. Try and do this from memory if you can. When you're done, rotate your workbook again and check your answers. You need to correct any which you got wrong. When you've done this, you've completed your homework. Well done, and I'll look forward to seeing you in class.